and thank you very much for tuning into the Cloud Native FM podcast. My name is Saim Safdar, the co-host of this show, and welcome to the first monthly review of Cloud and Tech Explainer. And I'm thrilled to kick off our inaugural monthly review where we delve into the latest and greatest happening in the world of cloud and platform engineering for the month of July. And I have special guest with me who is also a creator of the Cloud Therapist YouTube channel, one of my favorite one, and I will show you what are the YouTube videos I like most in this YouTube channel in this monthly review. But over to you, Richard Simons. We have three topics to cover today. Number one, Happy International Blue Screen Day, and the Stack Overflow 2024 Developer Survey. And you let us know what are the things you have actually put on in your YouTube channel on month of July. So first thing first, over to you, Simons, on Happy International Blue Screen Day.
Hey, thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Simon. My normal job is CTO at T-Systems International. My channel is the Cloud Therapist channel. So do check that out on YouTube. So yeah, CrowdStrike. So wow. Okay, so that's really big one. I think probably a good place to actually start with that controversial topic. So there is actually I was trying to kind of find a good explanation as to what happened and somebody kind of to provide a good succinct sort of view in terms of kind of the events and what actually happened. So I'll plug another channel, and there's a guy called Dave's Garage on YouTube channel. So on YouTube, rather. So he has a great channel. I think he's an ex-Microsoft or Windows engineer or something. And he's provided a really good, like 10-15 minute explanation of what's actually happened in the last couple of weeks with the CrowdStrike issue. So this was quite interesting. I mean, there's so many directions we can go in on this same, but the basics of it is that CrowdStrike, have an agent. It acts as I believe, as a device driver. So it works in the kernel space. This is actually digitally signed by Microsoft. So it is fully approved by Microsoft. And the agent, when it gets updates, it sometimes receives those updates in the form of new code to execute. Clearly, this time it received some code that was either not tested or bad code or whatever. And that caused a problem for the Windows kernel. So the Windows kernel performed this sort of kernel panic, which is also known as the blue screen of death, or BSOD. And once it obviously experienced that, and because it's a device driver, the agent says, I have to, I want to start with the operating system, and that kind of pretty much got all systems into a loop.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think this, thank you for explaining this in some detail here, because I think this is a very crucial, one of the more scary outages in the recent time, because I see people won't be able to open up their fridges. That's how scary it is. Wow. Yeah. I see some of the memories.
Dare you open that door? Dare you pull that door open?
Yes, absolutely. And as you explained, like I think right now, as we're speaking, this is event happening in July 19, 2024. And as you mentioned, as the CrowdStrike update for Windows Sensor, the system crashes with what we call a blue screen of death. And the issue was due to the bug that let a faulty configuration pass through validation, leading to memory errors and crashing. The problem was fixed within an hour. To prevent this in future, CrowdStrike improved testing, validation, and deploy updates. And they also initiating gradually or stage deployment in near future. And that's made me very scary. And that was written in their CrowdStrike preliminary post-incident review. So what's your thought on the stage deployment being actually neglected from this update from start to finish?
Yeah, some people have mentioned that, and I obviously agree that should have been the case. I don't know, how much of their installed estate was updated in one go, whether it was are all the ones that we've heard about, the entire sort of in a customer base that CrowdStrike has. By the way, that's a really good list for anybody who is a competitor to CrowdStrike. Now they know who the customers are. They can get maybe go after them and sell them an alternative to CrowdStrike. So yeah, so we don't know whether that's the entire sort of client base or not. But certainly, yes, that would be one of the things I would expect them to have done.
Yes, absolutely. And I think canary deployment, state deployment is your way to go to tool before you actually do any serious stuff in the production deployment well. And also, I think before I just a final thought on this, I think one of the things I felt understand that the CrowdStrike Falcon requires installing a right way tool called Falcon Sensor, and it has to do with some kernel mode. And if a regular app crashes, you just open it up again, and it's running on the user mode. So the Falcon sensor is running in kernel mode. Oh my God. The problem here is what we call the kernel is to panic, and what we have seen a happy international blue screen day that causes a very humongous frustration on all the people actually going through some going through some vacations on that day. It's a very bad thing. It is. Hopefully is not going to be come back any sooner. So now the next topic, Richard, and that's I think our favorite topic as we're speaking today is this one, is Stack Overflow Developer Survey of 2024. And one thing I noticed is very extremely fascinating that the rest in second year in a row has admiration rate of 83%. But over to you with some few insight on survey.
Yeah, so this was really, really interesting. I think they said they surveyed over 65,000 developers. So I think that's a good sample. There was a number of topics I think that they included on that. So everything from the developer profile, the type of developers, some of the technologies, how AI is affecting that, sort of the work sort of conditions and environment, some of the communities and methodologies used, I guess, sort of development frameworks and so on. So it's quite extensive, which was quite impressive. And then the key territories that they seem to kind of focus on was around 19% was from the US, I believe. Germany came in at 8.4%, India at 7.2%, and the UK at 5.5%, quite respectable number at 5.5% as well. The main areas that I really looked at was when the survey was focusing on AI questions. So I'm really interested in that space. So one of the questions they asked was AI search and development tools. So obviously this kind of, is anybody sort of using AI, or kind of what are they using and so on. So the response I think was most people use ChatGPT, which I think is maybe predictable because that's kind of been out the longest, so people trust it and make use of that. But there were also, I think there was also a desire to use GitHub Copilot going forward as well in the future. So I think all of that is still bad news for Stack Overflow, I'm afraid, because they're not using their tools; they're using the Microsoft tools in general. There was actually an interesting report that came out last year, 2023, by a research company called Air Street Capital. So they did a state of AI report, and they showed one of the charts that they showed, and this is maybe backing up the information from the Stack Overflow survey, is they showed the difference of usage of Stack Overflow before ChatGPT kind of came online and people realized they could use it for code and development and so on, versus a chart that showed it after ChatGPT. And it showed that there was like a significant drop in terms of the usage of Stack Overflow as soon as ChatGPT kind of came online and people started learning about it. So I think that is maybe confirmed in this survey by Stack Overflow, so that most people have been using ChatGPT, and going forward in the future, they're going to look at GitHub Copilot as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think as you're speaking, like most of the things I'm noticing the similar as you speak. And I think one thing I also notice some of the folks are saying 41% are saying we want to jump from Chat GPT to the Copilot
Yes.
from the GitHub. So that is very fascinating. And also there's a very interesting, because the Gen AI area always been a very, very, very interesting. And I'm reading from I'm reading from the analysis report. There's folks saying the promise of Gen AI was its ability to deliver quick solution and speed, uptime consuming process. However, 31% of developer remain skeptical, 23% somewhat distrust, 8% highly distrust, and that these tools offer accurate solution. And 45% believe AI tools are bad or very bad at handling complex tasks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's interesting. I think there's always going to be like a degree of skepticism, and quite rightly so. I think that's actually quite healthy to, to be skeptical and not just kind of follow the trends just because everybody's doing that. And I don't think there shouldn't be an expectation that any sort of Gen AI platform, regardless of whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or any of the other ones out there, are going to be really perfect at the code that they generate. There's always going to be, you're always going to need a pair of human eyes to kind of to review the code and most likely make modifications, if not customization, that's required for that as well. But there are certain areas I think that it's proving to be quite useful, and certainly I see it in the documentation side of the side of the camp as well. I think there's definitely an aspect of it where it can be used for documentation, and actually that should be a positive thing because most developers hate documentation. So this should be a really positive thing. Nobody should be, I think, disagreeing or arguing with that.
Absolutely. And I think I done some podcasts that you done in the YouTube channel as well. So what I see folks are saying, treat AI as a feature compared to the
Yeah,
product.
yeah,
And that's a very, very crucial move people have to take on. And before we actually jump into the main topic, so I think one of the interesting thing I'm noticing in the report, in the survey, learning is great, but earning is better. Challenging in the world economy have been tough on many professionals, including developer. Most developers that are not in people manager position are reporting annual salary decreases of at least 10K annual USD.
yeah,
And pivotal roles such as site reliability engineers reported decrease of 15K USD annually, and backend developer reported 9K USD
yeah.
annual decrease. So what's your thought on this process?
I think so. I mean, like I said, just sticking again, just very quickly on that sort of AI section of the, of the survey. There was again things like AI tools, in the development process. Most people, 76% said they want that. They welcome sort of using AI, and as a kind of a code assistant and kind of augmenting what they're doing. I think that makes a lot of sense. And there was an increase from last year to this year in that desire. So this last year it was 44% that wanted that. This year it was 62% in the response. So again, there's clearly a kind of an agreement that AI is kind of bringing some positivity to that. There were other things like AI tools for next year. Are AI tools a threat to your job? This was actually an interesting question. Again, 70% positively felt that it wasn't a threat, so that's good. 19% or about 20% were not sure. So again, that's kind of a healthy skepticism there, even on that. And 12% said yes, that was kind of they felt it was. But maybe that's kind of just the kind of the lower yielding type of roles that are out there. And then the final point on it, which again I picked up on around AI, was the ethical issues around AI. So misinformation, disinformation, that was a high number there. 79.4%, I think, were concerned about that. Missing or, this is interesting, missing or incorrect attribution. So attributing somebody, the original author of something, whether it's code or, books or documents or whatever, 64.7% were concerned about that. And then a couple of interesting points there. One around energy demand. So 36.3% were concerned around that. I think more people should be concerned about that, because this is going to, AI, using AI, whether it's your tool or somebody else's tool, is going to break sustainability targets. There's already people talking about that. We started picking up on, how the electricity grids are going to really supply this new energy that's required for all of these new, hyperscale data centers that are going to be, created by the likes of Microsoft and Amazon and so on, that have dedicated AI workloads. They're specifically designed for AI. So where they're going to get the electricity from, for all of those. So that was a concern. And I think the flip side of that coin is that that's going to break your sustainability targets if you do that. Even if you're just a normal enterprise and you say, okay, yeah, I want to use an SLM or something, that's going to cause, I think, some issues with sustainability targets. And then hidden under the ethical issues of AI question, there was a twist to the jobs, to the job threat kind of question in there. And it said replacing jobs without reassignment of that role to something else. Actually, that number was higher in under that question. It said 34.1% were concerned about that. So I don't know if that's like, I mean, that sounds like a little bit of a contradiction in to the prior question, which asked about, is AI a threat to your job directly? Most people felt it wasn't. But then when you've kind of asked it from an ethical point of view and a kind of ethical AI, almost a third of people agreed that it was actually, there was a potential threat there. So that's quite interesting, that depending on how you ask the question, maybe you get a different answer.
Thanks, Richard, for a wonderful deep dive analysis of the very important topic of our time. That's our CrowdStrike Happy International Blue Screen Day and Developer Survey Report, where it tells about some of the Docker is gaining once again the more container-oriented tool. Rust is picking up admiration. Gen AI is little bit of more skepticism than before, and the salaries are decreasing, and bunch of the community heading towards it as well. Once again, thank you very much, Richard, on this.